Sharon Lokedi won the 2022 New York City Marathon with a very fast time. This may seem a little perplexing because many runners have worked hard, gone to Pilates and physical therapy, and worn orthotics to correct form very similar to Lokedi's. So how did she run so fast? If you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button and the bell to be notified every time I post a new video on running form, running injuries, and how to get back that fun, free, flying feeling you had when you were a kid. I'm Gruenke, founder of The Balanced Runner, and I've been helping runners and triathletes from beginner to Olympian improve their form and performance since 2003. And I've been writing and videoing analyses of elite runners for a decade, and I've found that we can learn the most from them when we ask not what is wrong with how they're running, but instead just simply how are they running? How does that work for them? So that's where we're going to start here. The first thing that stands out about Lokedi's form is how close together her knees are, closer together than either her hip joints or her feet. This is the thing that runners generally work so hard to change, but that's often unsuccessful, and I don't see any evidence that Lokedi is wearing orthotics, which is the most common measure to correct this. Let me know in the comments if you run this way and whether you've done anything to try and change it. What this means is that her thighs are rotating inwards, and then her lower legs as well. Internal rotation of the thighs is what needs to happen in late stance, meaning after the runner's body has left their foot behind just before they take off into the air. Because that side of the pelvis rotates backwards, the leg actually ends up turning inwards in the hip joint in order to just be facing forwards. Lokedi is very good at this action, and in fact does a larger version of it so that her knee turns inwards rather than just facing forwards. What this means is that it's very easy for Lokedi to move her body past her foot and to take off into the air. Lots of runners struggle with this, effectively running in a sitting position with their pelvis behind their feet, and that really slows you down. So even though Lokedi's form is unbalanced in this way, it's an imbalance that favors speed. We can see evidence of this as she approaches the finish line. I love watching what runners do at the finish line when they let up on their effort because it reveals things that have been going on in their form throughout the race that were hidden by speed. Lokedi puts her arms up in victory, but unusually she puts them forwards rather than out, and it almost looks like she's falling towards the tape. This is consistent with her being organized for late stance and takeoff, for having her body be completely past her feet. Her arms can only really go forwards in line with that action. The second thing you might notice about Lokedi's form is that her feet are turned out in the air. And that's because her knees are not over her feet but inside them. So the downward force through her thigh bone as she pushes against the ground to get into the air doesn't go into her big toe, it goes towards the ground to the inside of her big toe, causing her to roll off the inside of the toe rather than spring off the end of it. And that pushes her forefoot outwards as it's going up into the air so that her foot is turned out in the air. You can always tell which part of the foot a runner is taking off from by looking at which way their foot is turned in the air. If they're rolling inwards off the big toe, then you'll see the foot turned out. If they're taking off from their third, fourth, or fifth toes, then the foot will point inwards in the air. And if they're taking off of the big toes, off the tips of the big toes, then the foot is basically vertical when seen from behind. You want to be taking off the big toe because as long as the shoe doesn't have a stiff rocker sole, as most super shoes actually do, the bending of the big toe joint, or the MTP joint, shortens the arch and stiffens the foot so it works like a spring. And that's how you get the most out of your feet. So what I'm saying here is that her feet pointing out in the air are the result, not the cause, of her knees going in. The third thing you might notice is that her arm swing isn't symmetrical. Her left arm comes up higher than her right, and she does different things with her two hands. If you watch from the front to see where each hand swings to on the upswing, you'll notice that they both basically line up with the right leg. And that means that neutral for her upper body isn't in the middle, it's turned a bit to the right. It's easier for her to turn her upper body right than left. You turn your upper body right when you're taking off from your left foot, and you're supposed to do that. It's part of how you create spring, swing the right leg through, and get ready to land on it. She does that pretty well on the left side, and if you check her feet, you'll see that her left foot points more forwards than her right. She doesn't roll inwards as much to take off her left foot as she does off her right, but instead uses her big toe better. However, it's harder for her to turn her upper body left and take off her right foot. And sure enough, her right foot turns out more. And we can go back to the finish line footage and see that her left arm is going almost towards the right when she puts it up. She's really organized to turn that direction the whole time when she's running. And this actually gives us some insight into what would be necessary for Lokedi to have her knees go more forwards than inwards and use both big toes better. And that is better movement from the hips upwards, including and especially upper body movement. So often, runners whose knees go inward are told to move their bodies less, keep their pelvis and even upper body from turning. But Lokedi is doing more of that on the right side, and that's the knee that goes in more and the foot that goes out more. And by the way, this is an incredibly common asymmetry, and chances are good that even if you don't have anything else in common with how Lokedi runs, your right foot points out a little more than your left. As I said at the outset, it's great how easily Lokedi moves through late stance to toe off. That's an asset for her. It would be even better if she could access the full range of hip actions needed to be comfortable in every part of the gait cycle. It would help her get more from her feet and improve her symmetry. Over the decades, I've developed a lot of materials to help runners learn how to do this, and I'm putting the link to my best free resource for this in the description below. It helps so comprehensively with core action, leg control, and balance that I simply call it Loosening Up to Run. It takes about an hour to do and will make a big difference in your running, so be sure to scroll down for that link. If you found this enlightening, be sure to check out my running form analysis of Bridget Kosgei as she set the Women's Marathon World Record in Chicago in 2019. I was there on the course and I captured high-speed video so you can really see what she's doing. Thanks so much for watching. Hit the like button and subscribe, and may all your running dreams come true.